This is implementing multiple bank accounts. My name is Chris Lee and my student number is S2248178878. Just for some quick housekeeping before we take off, because the debugger will be jumping around like crazy. I'm just going to cover some sort of basic functionality of the program. Firstly, we have Boolean indicators. These are instance variables and they hold a Boolean value. They are execute, success, and reversed. And the idea here is that they're going to help us track the state of an operation. So, for example, execute will help us determine whether or not we've already attempted an operation. Success will let us know if we were able to perform that operation, and reverse will let us know if we have undone it. The functionality of the entire program essentially revolves around the private instance variable balance. This is a bank account after all, and the idea here is that we want to use it to be able to interact with their balance, but we do not want them to be able to modify it directly. So we're using encapsulation again. So the private instance field balance will be modified directly by Boolean methods defined in the account class called withdraw and deposit. Those two methods in particular will be called in other classes such as withdraw transaction, the execute method namely, and the idea here is that we are going to introduce the Boolean indicators. So we will set execute for our attempt to true, and then we will move through, call the withdraw, deposit, whatever, and we'll go from there. The two sort of main ones that we'll explore today anyway are the transfer method and the rollback method. Now, just before we begin, in main down here, we have a variable called transaction, and that is going to store an instance object of the transfer transaction class. So at this point in time, the only option for a transaction to register really is the transfer. And then once we have that transaction stored, that instance object, we can pass it to the rollback and we can roll it back from there. So if we were to try to just withdraw or deposit money, it wouldn't register as a transaction. And we're also hard coding where the money is coming from and going to with these account instance objects. In later versions of the program anyway, we allow a user to choose where they want to send money to and from. Now, because this is sort of an extension of a previous project, I'm not going to go over all of the stuff that we've covered previously, like the menu options, enumeration, and the switch and all that. We're just going to move through it rather quickly. So we have our two instance objects of the account class created. They've been given a value for their balance, which we will modify. The menu is open. We're going to take input from the user. We're going to choose transfer in this example, so we'll choose form. Return the cast menu options value. Now our switch case down here, we have the transaction variable here, and we are going to set it to the instance object of the do transfer method. We've passed it account to as the money to take, as the account to take money from, and account as the account to send money to. In do transfer, we'll note that this is going to return our instance object and store it in the transaction variable. So first we're going to find out how much we want to transfer. In this particular example, I'm going to transfer $2. We will create an instance object called transaction, like we were sort of going through with our from account, to account, and the amount. In here, these were the Boolean indicators that I was talking about earlier. Initially, these are all set to false because we do not have an operation yet. The underscore deposit and underscore withdraw private variables as well are going to store an instance object of the deposit transaction or withdraw transaction class. So we'll move over to those constructors. We're in deposit transaction at the moment, and again, all of the Boolean indicators are set to false. Now that we have our transaction instance object, I'll see if I can bring that up a little bit bigger. We can see that we have our all of our indicators set to false. This is the initial state. We haven't done anything yet. There has been no operation. The amount that we're wanting to transfer is 2. And these are some other information there. Just ignore that for now anyway. We'll call the execute method. We're back in transfer transaction, and we're going to see if the transaction has been attempted yet. If we've already tried, this is set to false, so we haven't. So we're going to move down. We're going to go to our underscore withdraw instance object and call the execute method from that class. So that's going to take us to the withdraw transaction class. In here, it's going to check if it's been executed again. We know it hasn't, but we're attempting it now. So we're going to set executed to true here. And this is sort of the workflow that allows a user to interact with the balance indirectly with some degree of separation. So the amount that we gave it was 2, and we are going to call the withdraw method from the account class. These were our mutator methods. This was the Boolean. It's going to come in here. We'll do some validation on the amount. So we're withdrawing. So we want to make sure that we're withdrawing less than the current amount and that it is a positive number. It is. So we will deduct that from the balance and we will return true. And what this has done here is allowed us to determine whether or not the operation, the transaction was successful. We were able to deduct money, so it was. So we set success to true. And we move through. So we're transferring money. We've withdrawn it from the from account. Those are our read-only properties. Now we're calling deposit execute. So we're going to move to the deposit transaction class and perform the execute method there. This is the same sort of checks. These are our Boolean indicators. This is the executed one. Now we're setting execute to true. We're going to call the deposit method from the account class again. So we just did withdraw, now we'll do deposit to put the money into the account. We'll come down here. At this point in time, we print out the current balance of the account. We sum the amount that we're depositing to the existing balance. We return true as well. We can then use that to update our Boolean indicator. So the successful deposit, the operation was successful. And now in the transfer transaction, we have to update these Boolean indicators as well. So you've probably noticed by now that there is a set of indicators in withdraw, in deposit, and now in transfer. This helps us track every step of the operation. We set executed to true, so we've just performed the transfer, and the transfer was successful, so we set that to true as well. We come down here, we call the print method. We move back to transfer transaction, and we are going to return the amount, which was 2, that we've transferred from whatever account we did. This is the name read-only property that I was talking about earlier. And then it's also going to return the name of the account that we sent the money to. From here, we need the print from the withdrawal transaction class. Now the operation was successful, so we're going to return the amount that was withdrawn from the from account. We come down here for deposit.print, so we're going to move to deposit transaction class. It was a success there as well. So we're going to say that the amount was deposited into the to account. And the transaction was not reversed, so we do not execute that body there. And here we have returned the transaction variable. So this now stores the instance object, which was just the transaction then. And next, what we're going to do is move through to the rollback method. So if we had have tried to call the do rollback method before, because it takes the instance object stored in transaction, it would have been null. We wouldn't have been able to do anything. The program would have stopped. Now that has a transaction stored there, so we're going to be able to roll it back. We will choose rollback, and just as a quick side note, we can see that we have the current balance. We withdrew 2. We had a remaining balance of 3, and then for the account which we called to account, we had a balance of 10. We deposited 2, and that updated. We summed our balance value to 12, and then we said that we transferred $2 from the Lee account to the Chris account, and then we specified which account was withdrawn and deposited from. We're going to roll that back now anyway. Now we're in the do rollback. This takes a transaction as a parameter. We're going to try calling the rollback method, which will come from the transfer transaction class. Now we want to figure out if the transaction actually occurred. If it did not, we will just throw an invalid operation exception. We know that it did because we set that to true. Next, we want to find out if the transaction has been reversed yet. It hasn't, so we're not going to execute that anyway. That would have thrown an exception as well. And here we are determining whether or not the transaction was a success. So we'll come over here and we're in withdrawal transaction. We want the value of the success Boolean indicator. Now, the idea here, just before I sort of roll on, is that we want to determine whether or not we actually have funds available in the account to withdraw. So if we were going to send that account into negative, we would not want to go forward with the operation. We would have stopped it. but because withdrawal was successful, we can withdraw the amount. And then the basic gist, which I've sort of skipped over a little bit here, just in the interest of time, is that we're withdrawing. So the reverse of that is now deposit. So we withdraw from the to account and we deposit back into the for account. And then we call rollback on the deposit transaction class. The transaction was executed, it was not reversed, and it was a success. So we're going to set reverse to true, and we are going to withdraw. So deduct the amount from the account, is the other account. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Here we are subtracting the amount from the balance. We set reverse to true, and then we are just going to print some rollback information, and that will just let us determine what the accounts look like before and what they look like after. So here we have the post rollback information, and we have the from account Lee, which was 25, I think it was. Yeah, it was. And then the to account Chris, which was 10. This was 12, and that was 23, and now it's been reversed, as we can see in the terminal. Thank you.